Hello everyone, I am Prachi Sharma from Shivi Forensics. Today, we are diving into the fascinating history of fingerprints, a cornerstone of modern forensic science. The journey of using a simple impression for identification spans centuries, and we will explore the key moments that made it the powerful tool it is today. So now, let's start with a basic definition. What is fingerprint? A fingerprint is simply the impression of the unique friction-rich patterns on a person's finger or thumbs. These patterns, which include unique features like ridges, chords, and deltas, are what forensic examiners analyze. Their job is to compare a print found at the crime scene to a known individual, providing powerful evidence for identification. Do you know? The value of a fingerprint in forensic science comes from two main characteristics. So here, the first one is permanence. Your fingerprints form before birth and will remain unchanged throughout your entire life. Second, uniqueness. A fingerprint is considered an individual characteristic, while there are series of lines. First, hills, also known as ridges, and second is valleys, also known as roofs. The specific arrangement of these features means no two persons have yet been found to possess identical ridge characteristics. So now, we should start with the history. The history really begins with the early anatomists documenting their skin structure. In the late 1600s, both Govard Bidlo, a Dutch anatomist, and Marcello Malfighi from University of Bologna documented these papillary or friction-rich features. In fact, the epidermal Malfighi layer of skin is named after him. Crucially, neither of these pioneers nor others at the time recognized or asserted that the patterns were unique or permanent. Moving forward to 1788, the German anatomist Dr. J.C.A. Mayer published a volume with illustration of friction-rich patterns. Mayer is the first person credited with the making of groundbreaking assertion. He observed that the configuration of skin ridge is never exactly same in two people. This makes him the first to assert uniqueness of friction-rich skin, a fundamental concept of forensic science. Now, let's move forward to 1823. In 1823, Jan Evangelista Purkinje, a professor of anatomy, delivered a dissertation where he was the first to categorize fingerprint configurations, grouping them into 9 distinct categories. While this classification was a huge step forward, it's important to note that Purkinje was focusing on anatomy and did not address the forensic potential of fingerprint for individual identification. As we all know, the concept of permanence needed proof. In 1856, German anthropologist Hermann Welker started one of the earliest studies on this. He recorded the print, a print of his own right hand, and then repeated the process 41 years later in 1897. The comparison of two prints provided the first documented evidence supporting the fact that fingerprints are unchanged over time. The first official practical use of fingerprints came from Sir William James Herschel in India in July 1858. As a chief magistrate of Hooghly district, he started using fingerprints for civil purposes. On a whim, he had a local businessman place his handprint on a contract to discourage fraud. This marked the beginning of using prints in civil documentation and led him to exploring the use of prints for personal identification. Do you know? In 1863, Professor Paul Jean Collier from Paris made a critical contribution to crime scene investigations. He published a pioneering observations on how to detect latent fingerprints on paper using iodine filming. Furthermore, he outlined techniques to preserve these delicate prints and emphasized their potential forensic value for identifying individuals, laying early groundwork for scientific evidence in investigation. In 1877, American microscopist Thomas Taylor was one of the first people to suggest that the prints left on objects could actually help solve crimes. By using a microscope to project detailed images of rich patterns, he proposed that these unique prints could be compared to those found at crime scenes, especially for identifying violent offenders. While his ideas weren't widely adopted immediately, they were a key step towards the modern role of fingerprint analysis. In 1870s to 1880s, Dr. Henry Forts began studying prints after observing finger marks on prehistoric pottery, which convinced him of their uniqueness and permanence. He actively advocated for the use of fingerprints for personal identification and introduced printer's ink as a practical way to capture clear impressions. He credited with the first recorded fingerprint identification, successfully matching with a greasy print on an alcohol bottle to its source. In 1882, the US saw its first documented use of fingerprints for identification. Gilbert Thompson, working for the US Geological Survey in New Mexico, used his own thumbprints on documents to prevent forgery during a payroll process. This early use of biometric identification foreshadowed the importance of fingerprints in fraud prevention and authenticating identity in government systems. Let me tell you something. Fingerprinting was popularized to the American public largely through fiction. Mark Twain or Samuel L. Clemens was one of the first American authors to feature it. In his 1883 book, Life on the Mississippi, he described a murder being solved by fingerprints. Later in Puddinghead Wilson, 1894, he featured a dramatic courtroom trial where fingerprint evidence was a key, emphasizing its potential as a reliable tool for justice. In 1888, Sir Francis Galton, a British anthropologist, began the systematic studies of fingerprints, truly laying the scientific foundation. His research focused on proving their uniqueness and permanence, and he introduced fundamental concepts like different pattern types and individuality. These concepts became absolutely essential for the eventual classification system used in forensic science and criminal identification. In 1891, taking Galton's concepts and applying them practically, Argentine police official Juan Vucetich pioneered the first systematic fingerprint filing system. He organized prints based on Galton's pattern types. Initially, he combined this with Bertillon's system, but his work was crucial in facilitating the transition away from body measurement and toward a purely fingerprint-based identification system in Latin America and globally. This is a major turning point. In 1897, the Calcutta Anthropometric Bureau, now Kolkata, India, was transformed into the world's first official fingerprint bureau, specifically for criminal record keeping. Indian experts Hemchandra Bose and Azizul Haq, working under Raja Sir Edward Richard Henry, played a crucial role in developing the Henry system of fingerprint classification. The system remains the foundation for fingerprint classification in many English-speaking countries to this day. In 1900, Mr. Edward Richard Henry, later known as Sir Ear Henry, presented a new system to a UK inquiry committee. The committee subsequently recommended that Henry's fingerprinting system be adopted as the primary method of identification, officially replacing the less accurate Bertillon system that relied on body measurement. This recommendation led to the establishment of the fingerprint branch at New Scotland Yard in 1901. The early 1900s saw rapid adoption in the US. In 1902, the first American fingerprint file was created by Dr. Henry Bellows DeForest for screening civil service applicants in New York City. A pivotal moment occurred in 1903 at Leavenworth Penitentiary. The prints of Will and William West were compared after their body measurements were found to be nearly identical. This case dramatically highlighted the superiority of fingerprinting over the Bertillon system. By 1904, the National Bureau of Criminal Identification was established, marking America's first national fingerprint repository. Fingerprinting quickly became a standard identification method for the US government. The US Navy officially began using fingerprints for identification in 1907, followed by the US Marine Corps in 1908. Looking ahead in 1914, the Denmark police pioneered the electronic encoding of fingerprints, marking a very early steps in digitizing this technology. In 1918, forensic science pioneer Edmund Locard established a critical standard for positive identification. He stated, listen carefully, he stated that if 12 matching ridge characteristics, often called Galton details, could be found between two prints, it could be sufficient to confirm a positive match. This concept laid the groundwork for modern comparison standards, emphasizing the reliability of fingerprint evidence in investigation. The FBI's role finally began in 1924 when Congress established the FBI Identification Division by merging the existing national bureaus. A significant change came in 1940s when the 12-point match rule was officially dropped. Experts concluded that there was no scientific basis for requiring a fixed number of matching minutiae for a positive identification. Finally, as the number of records grew to 200 million by 1971, the introduction of automated fingerprint identification system, that is also known as AFIS, marked the beginning of modern computerized criminal records. In 1973, the International Association for Identification, which is IAI, formalized the end of fixed point standards, resolving that no minimum number of matching points is required for identification. Each match is unique and case specific. To ensure quality, the IAI launched the world's first fingerprint certification program in 1977. This began the process of formally testing and certifying experts, establishing the professional standards we rely on today. Now comes in 2010, world's largest database. To see the modern scale of fingerprinting, we look to India. The Unique Identification Authority of India, which is UIDAI, manages Aadhaar, which is world's largest multi-modal biometric system. This system uses a combination of fingerprints, iris scan, and facial recognition to uniquely identify residents of India. With a biometric database far larger than any globally, over 1.11 billion numbers issued by 2017, it demonstrates the incredible speed and accuracy of modern biometric identification. In conclusion, the journey continues. Recent milestones include in 2012, Interpol's automated fingerprint identification system surpassed 150,000 fingerprint records, over 170 member countries having 24/7 access to their expert services. Second, in 2015, the International Association for Identification celebrated its 100th anniversary, making a century of driving advancement in forensic identification worldwide. From anatomical observations in the 17th century to today's massive integrated digital system, the history of fingerprints is a perfect example of scientific discovery, leading to a reliable tool for today's justice. The information for this presentation was sourced from key texts in forensic science and the history of identification, which you can see listed here. So here my PPT ends. Thank you so much everyone.